What is it that makes us so interested in what we don't understand? We're setting out to investigate everything strange, unusual, and scary in our world.
They're going to be able to scan your brain and upload it to a computer. Some people think of it as like the greatest victory that we could ever have because it makes you immortal in a sense. I think it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. We invite guests who bring their own personal perspectives.
I mean, especially considering the fact that the overwhelming majority of UFO sightings and documentation occurs within miles of nuclear testing facilities.
Yeah. They bring their own encounters with the paranormal.
All of a sudden, I feel this whoosh of wind and this ringing in my ears so loud that makes me stand up straight. And we both had this moment of, maybe we should get out of here.
It was a hot summer day and a hot night, but when I went into this one room, it was freezing. And to this day, it felt like somebody was going to push me down the stairs.
A few months into living at the new house, I was woken up to the lamps being on and the snow globe music box going off.
Hello. And most of all, we just have a ton of fun.
Jacques would never eat, not a single bite, just sip from his glass of wine.
He was a vampire. He was a vampire.
100% a vampire, holy buckets.
My name is Ashley, and this is my co-host Lauren.
Hello, weirdos.
And you are listening to Keep It Weird.
Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Caitlyn.
Hi, creepy people.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
And they don't respond.
Oh, they never respond.
Dead air. Awkward.
Email us.
All right. Yeah. This is P&W Haunts and Homicides, which they know that by now.
But
we keep saying it,
Well,
though.
we have a lot of new listeners all the time, so they
That's
might
true.
not. It might be their first episode, which I don't know why you started on a half episode, but
that'd be really weird.
Maybe go back.
They're like 1.5.
It's
intriguing.
What is it? What did I put it as? 54.5 or something?
Something like that.
53.5?
Yeah. It is a 0.5 because it's a short one. I just wanted to go into some of the suspects for the Ardenwald Axe Murders. So, yay. You guys, they're all really nice people. Okay.
Oh, I'm sure. Axe murder suspects.
Yeah. I mean, come on. All right. So we left off talking about the reward money after we went through the details of the crime. We're about to get right back into it and talk about the neighbors and other suspects. So we'll start it off with a bang. Joseph Delk, also referred to as RT Delk, which I don't know how you get RT out of Joseph, but
maybe it's like a weird nickname.
Could be. Yeah. I was kind of thinking like RT, you guys, he did it. It's in the initials right there.
Nice one.
Right? Oh, man. In some of the source material, it said that he lived super close by and that his axe was legit the murder weapon. But I guess people left that shit lying around back then, so it's not as next level sus as it seems to us over 100 years later.
Oh, how weird.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm shocked. Yeah, I just think it's kind of interesting because, number one, I don't own an axe, so maybe I shouldn't be allowed to comment. But I'm just saying I wouldn't leave mine laying around.
No? You don't just, like, throw it in a piece of wood? Throw it?
Yeah. Throwing axes.
Yeah.
That's
you just leave it there.
Yeah, that's our only exposure to axes, I think.
I did the throwing axe thing once, and I didn't do very well.
Yeah, I hear it's really hard.
It's really fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. They try to, like, teach you how, but you gotta have it.
She says teach with, like, major air quotes. Basically, the axe murder happened upon the weapon as he strode up the hill to kill the Hill family.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to pause for a second because that was a lot. Which it sounds like a joke, but it's not.
It's not.
It's just a lot of, the same like sounding words in a string.
Yeah.
So he could literally count on someone leaving an axe somewhere that could be easily accessed, if not even in plain sight, and in close proximity to his eventual crime. He could then ditch the weapon, and if it cast suspicion on a neighbor briefly, so much the better. I mean, as strategies go, I think it's a strong one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't do it. It was that guy. It's his axe. God. So actually, this isn't so much of a bang as it is maybe just a flash in the pan. This was basically just an attention-grabbing factoid that didn't even have the oomph to become oomph.
Oompa
Oompa. This was basically just an attention-grabbing factoid that didn't even have the oomph to become a lead that went nowhere. It stopped before it really even started.
So it's not the neighbor.
No.
Oh.
Yep, just a red herring.
Okay.
Yep.
They didn't have fingerprints back then, right?
Well, we've always had fingerprints. Here, that's my instant karma for being a dick. We've always had fingerprints.
I knew you were going with that.
Yeah, no, they weren't really developing fingerprinting technology at the level that we were today. But actually, thinking back to the Tunnel 13 case, I think that they were able to identify fingerprints at that crime scene, and that was, I think, about 50, 60 years prior. Oh. So it's not that it didn't exist, but I think, especially when this is a weapon that's been used after basically being, quote unquote, borrowed from the neighbor, it might be tough. And I would think jammy the tools that they're using back then are pretty rudimentary. They really need that person to just like leave like a big old fat jammy print.
Ew, jammy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, you didn't like that?
No.
Okay, well, to each their own. Whatevs. Another neighbor, Nathan Harvey, is infinitely more interesting.
He sounds guilty.
Yeah, he really does. Honestly, if you saw the post that we put together when we put out the first episode regarding the Ardenwald Axe Murders, you saw the picture of Nathan Harvey. And yeah, he kind of just looks like a dick. I mean, most people in those old-timey photos generally do because they're typically not smiling.
Now I gotta look at him.
Yeah, they have serious RBF.
You know why they always look so dour in those pictures, though, right? Because when you were sitting for a photograph for, most of human history, you were sitting.
You have to sit there for a while.
Be there for a while. So you weren't going to, smile because if you let your smile down, it was going to look weird.
Yeah.
It was going to, mush up the photo.
Yeah.
So you had,
I know that's what the common fashion for photos was and all of that. Yeah.
You just did a face that you could hold for 18 minutes.
Yeah, because it really was
as the exposure. It was like silver nitrate.
I was going to say, it's like a really long exposure time. So there's definitely a lot that's interesting about Nathan Harvey. Wow. There's basically a whole episode of material to potentially unpack there. I'm just not going to do that to you just yet, but we'll definitely be looking at him a little closer.
Ooh, in the next episode?
Yeah, there's another one coming. Yeah. Okay. He wasn't just a neighbor to the Hill family. Nathan Harvey was not only a hella sketch Iowa native that more than likely had killed before in his home state, but he had actually been suspected in another case in the area. These rumors had since died down, but as you might suspect, the police also looked at him a little closer. In fact, he would be arrested and charged with the Hill family murders just 2 weeks before Christmas. But the charges against him were dropped in February, notably just months before the Villisca Axe Murders took place in June of 1912, a year to the day after the Ardenwald Axe Murders.
Oh.
But for now, maybe let's save further discussion of Nathan for later. I know that you're going to want to know about these other cases that drew police suspicion to him, but there's a major possible tie-in, and we're just not going to be able to cover that ground right now. For now, you'll have to be satisfied with our discussion of the other suspects, or we'll be here for literal hours. Suffice to say, I think Nathan Harvey was a major person of interest, turned suspect, and possibly a very deeply duplicitous dude.
You like to say that, don't you?
I do. Yeah. So now we have the suspects that are very specific to this crime. Aside from neighbor Nathan, who I'm giving some major side eye, and that's not to say that some of them didn't also have a criminal history, but I think Nathan, by comparison, just blows them all out of the water. There's not a lot that was proven against him, but it's like, Nathan, hey, bud, everybody just like keeps dying around you pretty horrifically. Like, you okay? Huh? How's things going?
Yeah, are you okay? Are you gonna be okay? Because I feel like you're next.
He's like, yeah, I just keep narrowly missing these violent crimes. It's so weird.
So lucky.
Yeah, so lucky. On June 19th, in 1911, the Oregonian newspaper ran a story with the headline, "Odd Men Held as Murder Suspects," which described, I believe, a number of the persons of interest associated with the murder investigation. Some of these are really kind of silly, so I'm not going to get into all of them. Like, so silly.
How silly?
Like, I'm picturing the cops tripping on rubber chickens.
Oh my God.
Banana peels. It's not cute. Swan Peterson, a 61-year-old Swedish immigrant arrested in Tacoma, and there were actually blood stains that were found in his hotel room. But obviously they don't have the technology to test DNA at this point, so it could literally be anyone's blood. But still, I mean, okay, whose blood is that?
Yeah.
It may not be the Hill family's, but I do have follow-up questions.
How much blood was it?
You know, that part is a little bit unclear. Enough that they were like, we have concerns.
Oh, God.
He had been working as a railroad maintenance person in the Rainier area. Because the case against him rested on information obtained through a third-rate, at best, interpreter, and was generally flimsy, it fell apart within just a few days. It would have been nice if they could have tied up the Hill family murders as well as another that happened in the area that he was working in about a month later. Don't worry, we're going to get to that one as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
You promise?
I do. I swear. Yeah. Pinky promise. George Wilson is our next suspect, and he was actually the one that originally cast suspicion on Swan. They're like, that's weird. They told us that this other guy, some Swedish dude, commit the crime. Now we're kind of thinking like, let's get a little closer look at him. It's like, maybe be careful when you point the finger. So I guess what comes around goes around, especially when you're a literal child molester who tries to incite a lynch mob against another.
What?
Yeah. That man was John Malqueen, if that wasn't the pot calling the kettle. Well, anyway, George Wilson had also been working in the Rainier area on the railroad with Swan. George's wife was the one to turn him in as a potential suspect for the Cobble murders.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's the crime that we'll get to, and we'll talk a little bit more about that because there are kind of some stunning similarities. We're going to get to it, but those were the murders that took place in the Rainier area a month after the Hill family was killed.
Oh my gosh. We're talking about that now or later?
We're going to talk more about it later.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, she thought that he had possibly commit the Cobble murders because one night when they had fought, he slept in a tent.
He slept in a tent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is apparently every dude's story. I don't know. Yeah.
A bunch of dudes slept in the same tent together?
No.
No?
He was having a fight with the missus, so he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go and sleep in a tent out in the front yard.
Okay.
And if you're confused because this story sounds familiar, literally there are a couple of different people that did that. on the night of a violent crime in the area.
That is the weirdest thing.
Yeah. What?
Is this the 1912 version of like you're sleeping on the couch?
Yes. It very much
Tenting in
is.
the front yard, young man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so weird though. Like a tent.
Oh, Cassie. It gets so much weirder. If you think you can't wrap your head around him just like sleeping out in his front yard in a tent, seriously. He woke up the next morning covered in blood.
Wait, what?
Not a joke.
How?
I mean, I think that we can probably draw some rough ideas about how.
Okay, so I want to know how this morning went. Are you gonna describe it?
There's not much to it. He basically just says, I woke up covered in blood and we had had a fight the night before. I think maybe I blacked out and flew into a rage.
And did what? Like, what do you think that you did? Killed a bunch of chickens? Are you like a werewolf?
Well, since he was eventually convicted of the Colborne murder, I think it was pretty clear that he felt like it was a strong possibility that maybe he had killed them. And obviously his wife thought so too, because, she was like, hey, you guys, I don't know, I have a tip for you. I don't know if this means anything to you, but like the night that couple died, like just, in Rainier, just, right down the road. It's so weird. My husband slept in a tent out in our yard that night. And then like the next morning, we wake up and he's like covered in blood. I don't know. Does that mean anything to you?
Oh my God.
So whether he killed the Cobles, the Hills, both or neither, that whole situation was definitely pretty sketch.
That's crazy.
Yeah. There were a series of men that made false confessions that are believed to be a byproduct of their various symptoms of mental illness. Guys, it's not a crazy long list, but even with these additional names, we're just still not going to be able to get to everybody that was at some point had the finger pointed at them for these heinous crimes. But here goes. So here's a few more. Remember, these are just the confessions that the annals of history have labeled as the misguided words of the mentally unstable. There was Olaf B. Anderson in 1914, Otto Straub in 1915, William Riggin in 1919, and then over a decade later, Leroy Robinson in 1931. What's crazy is that Leroy waited all that time, and then, not to be outdone by any of his predecessors, he confessed not just to the murders of the Hill family in Ardenwald, but also to the Villisca Axe Murders.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but there were a lot of people that were making false confessions for both of those crimes.
They didn't say why they did that, I'm assuming.
No, but a lot of the reporting has very real cute old-timey terminology for mental illness. You're like, oh, I
don't like that.
Yeah, it wasn't great. So I didn't include it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they had some interesting ways of kind of dancing around the subject. And obviously, what we understand about mental health today is very different. And
yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Did these people ever go through like a trial or anything, or were they just like, no?
I don't think that any of these ones actually went to the point of having a trial. With all of these ones, it was found out pretty quickly that it was like, actually, there's no way. Like physically, this man couldn't have been in the area or, one way or another. Which, I mean, thankfully, because this is someone who's confessing who they're mentally ill.
Yeah, how sad.
Yeah. So, I mean, good thing that they were able to determine that they hadn't committed the crime. But there were a lot of other people that it was like they just happened to be like people that are what we would refer to now more commonly as houseless. There was a young man that lived down by the Willamette River that he was accused at one point. There were several different people that just came from a poor background or were people of color that were accused at some point. And the danger back then, especially, was even if the police arrested them, the police force was such a small mom and pop operation, even in a city like Portland, that a lot of times people would form a lynch mob and they would break into the jail and they would literally take this person by force from law enforcement and they would just string them up and there would be no trial.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. We don't really have any instances of that specifically in connection to the Hill family murders, to the Ardenwald Axe murders, but I will say
possible.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what George Wilson was trying to do. And I believe this was years prior, but he was a child molester himself, and he tried to out another child molester, and he basically was trying to start up a lynch mob to probably cover a crime that he had actually commit.
That makes sense.
Yeah, super classy guy. Yeah.
Did they go through with it?
That one, I think it was a pretty close call, but I don't think that, as I recall, it wasn't really specifically related to this case other than giving some background on just kind of what a horrible human he was.
Yeah.
So as I recall, it was a really close call, but it didn't end up happening. Okay. So we're just going to keep talking about this inexplicably more famous case, the Villisca Axe Murders, though. So, I mean, it's going to come up in this next section as we talk about the man from the train.
Ooh, that sounds ominous.
Yeah. So if you're sick of it, well, honestly, so am I. And as much as I'd like to say it's the last time, it's definitely going to get brought up again. And I don't want to lie to you guys, but I do think it's really interesting. Normally, I wouldn't necessarily think that there would be a linkage between the Ardenwald Axe Murders and the Villisca Axe Murders. But the fact that we have so many different people that were potential suspects or persons of interest that, moved between the two states. The fact that they both occurred on the same day, a year apart.
That's like the biggest, really?
Yeah. I mean, that seems pretty unlikely to be coincidence.
And it's like the same type of murder too. If it was like a different kind of murder, it'd be like, all right, but.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and like I said, axe murders were horrifyingly, exceedingly common back then. So I don't know that if it was just the fact that they were both axe murders, that wouldn't really be very convincing. But I think a couple of those kind of main similarities make them pretty hard to divorce from one another.
Yeah.
So I want a divorce.
Jeez, you're not even married yet.
Oh, I mean from Villisca.
I get it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, bye, everyone.
That was it?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to go through and do a little bit more about the suspects. And there wasn't a very good place for us to kind of insert that within the first case episode without kind of derailing too much.
Yeah.
And then in the next one, we're already going to talk about all of the freaking conspiracy theories and stuff of that the author had. So we just say goodbye to the creepy people?
Yeah, we should probably go.
Okay.
Give them their weekend back.
Well, and then we have other shit to do, so.
Yeah. We don't have time for this all day.
Yeah. God.
Do I sound like a man in a tunnel far away?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
But the Wickersham Commission.
I'm leaving that in.
Okay. All right.
Have a creepy ass day.
See you next Tuesday. Except for Nathan.
Yeah. We're not gonna,
we
are going to see Nathan on Tuesday, though.
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk about him, right?
Yeah.
I guess we lied.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It happens on accident.
See you Tuesday.
Okay, bye. So for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yes, we will read them out loud.
Not just in our heads.
Yes. They don't have to be from the Pacific Northwest if you would like to share. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters. Super duper easy peasy.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Same thing as the email at pnwhauntsandhomicides, all spelled out, no special characters. Please also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to, and check out our stories on social media because our meme game is hot.
Agreed.
And if you agree, like Caitlyn, you can also find us on Patreon and support the show.
Bitchin'.
There was this thing in like the 30s, and it was actually mostly a thing that Herbert Hoover did because of Prohibition. It was like this kind of congressional, commission kind of thing. They put together this thing called the Wickersham Report. And the Wickersham Report was basically talking about...
The Worcestershire Report?
The The Wickersham. It's Wickersham. Wickersham. Yeah, right. I mean, I don't make up the names, but basically,
sounds like
it talked about like the failures of law enforcement to enforce prohibition. But then one of the other things that it made really a hot button issue at the time was what they referred to for a long time as the third degree. Are you familiar with the phrasing? Mm-hmm. So we'll give them the third degree. It was a literal the third degree were specific methods of police interrogation that they would use on suspects. I mean, it's essentially torture, like all the way up to
enhanced interrogation techniques,
all the way up to literally like shocking people with car battery kind of thing.
Oh my god!
I mean, it was like electrocution and that kind of thing.